Hey guys, in this we're going to talk about Bob Baffert. And as you know, a couple of days ago, none of his horses transferred to other trainers for the 2024 Kentucky Derby. And I think that's some fairly big news as, a few years ago, he won the Kentucky Derby with Medina Spirit. And after the race, when they ran the post race drug test, they found, Medina Spirit with a little too much of a substance in his system. And Bob Baffert's paid the price. As Churchill Downs has dropped the band hammer on him for the last couple of years. Then they re-picked it up and carried it longer. What's supposed to be a 2-year ban is turn a little bit longer. And we're going to talk about that and how I think Bob Baffert can impact the 2024 Kentucky Derby despite not being in the race. And I think he can do that in a really massive way. And number one way he can do that is you're going to lose some of the name recognition. And I think horse race is no different from any other sport where sports need their big names. Like look at college football with Alabama and Georgia. Whether you want to admit it or not, more people tune into those games when they're playing for championships or big games. And I think for horse racing is kind of the same thing with Todd Pletcher, Steve Asmussen, Bob Baffert. You need a Baffert name in there. Like him or hate him, he's won 4 Kentucky Derbies in the last few years. American Pharaoh, Justify, Authentic, Medina Spirit. It just goes on. There's no other trainer that can say for strictly Kentucky Derby races that are as good on the trail as what Bob Baffert's been. And there's been numerous other horses he's had that should have been right up there with the other contenders that fell just a little bit short. So if I was a horse owner, I'd want to give my horse to Bob Baffert if my goal is to win the Kentucky Derby. And his name not being there is going to mess that up a little bit. And second off is just because Baffert's banned from racing the Kentucky Derby doesn't mean he can't put his horses in these points races for the Kentucky Derby. And if he does that, that could throw a monkey wrench in the system big time. As I'd assume with Baffert being banned, he's probably got a little sour taste in his mouth for Churchill Downs by now. He might not publicly come out and say it, but I'm sure he wants to win as many of these prep races as he can. And you got some 50, 100-point races coming up. San Felipe, Santa Anita Derby. Got the Rebel Stakes, Arkansas Derby. Shows that Bob Baffert's been known to go out there and send horses and win before. And if he's winning those races, then those horses that second place horse be the one getting the points, and instead of 100, they might get 50, and it's called a trickle down effect. And let's say the horses coming out of Gulfstream or Aqueduct go on and get the 100 points. I think it's going to make the field a little less competitive. There's going to be that big talent gap between, let's say, the first. Every Derby is kind of like there's 7 or 8 horses that seem like they're in that kind of upper tierish level. There might be a couple of standouts every year, but you have your top horses, and you kind of have that little tier that's just below the top. Then you have those complete, like, no, I'm not betting them this year ever. And that talent gap, instead of 7 or 8 horses, now it might be 2 or 3, and that could kill the odds on Derby Day. As those favorites really going to get bet hard. As you know, people are going to try to put their hard-earned money towards horses that they think can win. So certainly, I really think he can impact the Derby Trail in more ways than what Churchill Downs is thinking. And I'm not here to talk about whether you like him or not, whether what Churchill Downs is doing or not doing is wrong. I kind of think that once they initially said it was going to be a 2-year suspension, he served his 2 years. Let him get back in there because they basically punished him again for really doing nothing different. Like he didn't add an extra charge, didn't do anything like that. So I say he paid his price, let the man go back in there. Uh, for the sake of the sport, I would like to see the horses taken a little bit better care of, just because I think every time something happens to a horse, it puts a black eye on the sport. And certainly in my lifetime, I don't want to see the Kentucky Derby, any horse racing go down the drain. I don't think it will. Just the amount of money that's put into the sport. Like I live in Florida, and they've already banned dog racing, but when you see horses purchased for $1 million, $2 million, that's play money to some of these people that got. If they're purchasing that, they got way more money to fight it. And I think if it came down to it, that they would. And so I don't see it going away anytime soon. But I do certainly hate to see the black eye, and it might make the new generation of people not want to tune in. Is uh, technology I still think needs to catch up with modern times of horse race, especially when it comes to past performance and handicapping and stuff. Make it more accessible for fans to go to the track. Because a lot of people that do it are kind of older people, and I would like to see the newer generation enjoy their days at the track and stuff like that. So I do think in that regard, Bob Baffert could be good for the sport as he gives that big name, and even if he's a bad guy to somebody, he still gives that villain like people might not want to admit. I think people like having a bad guy to go against. Kind of like every hero needs a supervillain, and he could be that person's supervillain. So either way you go, the sport needs Bob Baffert, and I still think he can impact the Kentucky Derby Trail in many ways, despite not running a horse on the first Saturday in May. And he'll certainly probably bring a horse to the Preakness and Belmont and do something there, but we'll see. And that's my take on that for this year. And thanks for watching, guys.